I think you can close the main door.
Yeah, I can just.
Because that's where the
No, they have
heat
it.
is coming.
But today is a hotter day.
Oh, it's a hotter day.
Yeah. Monday is going to be more hot.
Oh my God.
When you're
Anyway.
Monday is going to be 100 more.
Okay. One more. Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. It's getting hot in here now. So we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava, then we'll speak a little bit. Let me just tune this thing. All right, remember the melody from last night? Okay, it's a little bit different. Manova Jaya Kunjaviyari Jaya Manova Jaya Kunjaviyari Jaya Manova Jaya Kunjaviyari Jaya Manova Kunjaviyari Gopi Jana Pallava Shakti Varare Jaya Giri Varare Gopi Jana Pallava Jaya Giri Varare Jaya Giri Varare Yasodanandana Jaya Braja Janarandana Yasodanandana Jaya Braja Janarandana Yasodanandana Jaya Braja Janarandana Yasodanandana Munatira Manachare Nayakunaviyare Nayakunaviyare Munatira Manachare Nayakunaviyare Jaya Kunjaviyare Munatira Banachari Jaya Kunjaviyare Jaya Kunjaviyare Munatira Banachari Jaya Kunjaviyare Jaya Kunjaviyare Jaya Kunjaviyare Jaya Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramacharya Osutela Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalanana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasiti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai. Maturam ki jai. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Yamunamai ki jai. Shivani Lasi Devi ki jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premananda. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhagavate Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati Deve. Gauravani Vacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarni. Can someone give me that plug-in that I just plugged into the, just want to turn it off. Just give it to me. That's it. That's good. Thank you. So, Om Gana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlagya Chakshur. I brought my own. Anyway. Mine's better than yours. Say the word. Thank you. So, that's all right, that's all right.
We missed some nice kirtan.
What?
Sorry, Raghuram, we missed some nice kirtan.
It's all right? He does a nice kirtans.
He just arrived.
Very nice.
Uh,
So, all right, so we'll have a short class because I don't want to be up too late like I was last night. So, Maganatimirandasha Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Vinikam Ena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So I'm just going to read a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita to speak about that. So there was the question raised to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu while Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was getting ready to go on his South India tour. And the question was raised by these devotees from a place called Kulinagram. And they said, you know, what should we do to become Krishna conscious? And here's the answer that Lord Chaitanya gave. Prabhu kahe Vaishnava seva nama sankirtan dui kara shigura bhave Shri Krishna charan. Which is really interesting. And I'll give you the translation. The Lord replied, you should engage yourself in the service of the servants of Krishna and always chant the holy name of Krishna. If you do these two things, you will very soon attain Krishna or attain shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. Wow. So two things, the holy name. Of course, last night we talked about Vaishnava Seva, Namaruchi, and Jivadoya. So those three things. So anyway, continuing with this discussion of how to achieve perfection in Krishna consciousness, later on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu states in the same chapter, when he's asked, how do you identify someone who is a Vaishnava, which is actually a really interesting question. And then Lord Chaitanya told about the different types of Vaishnavas, and we mentioned this last night, you know, the Majam, Kanishta, Buddha Mahadakar. But Lord Chaitanya defined the topmost Vaishnava as someone who, when you see them, you want to chant Hare Krishna. So that was actually my experience with His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The first time I saw Srila Prabhupada in person, because I had heard Prabhupada already, the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada in person, then immediately the Mahamantra came to my mouth. I was already chanting, but immediately I just kept chanting spontaneously. Because a Vaishnava is a touchstone. So the whole secret of advancement in spiritual life is association with great devotees, as Lord Rishabhadev states. Mahatseva Mahur Vimuktes Tamodvaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangha. That by association with the Mahatmas, the great souls, and the door to liberation is open. And there's many other quotes in the Vedic literatures, and even Lord Shiva states, Arananam Sarvesham Vishnu, Arananam Param, Tasmat Parakaram Devi, Tvaniyanam Samarchanam. He says of all types of worship, the worship of Vishnu is the best, but even better than that is the worship of things related with Vishnu, specifically Vishnu's devotees. And of course we have Krishna's statement in the Adi Purana, where he says, he who says he is my devotee is not my devotee, but he who says he is a devotee of my devotee is my devotee. So here's the secret of spiritual life. Now, why is it a secret of spiritual life? I mean, why do we need Krishna's devotees to become Krishna conscious? This is explained very nicely by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Madhurya Kadambini, a very beautiful book. And also by Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in some of his literatures that you have something called bhakti. And for those of you who don't know what bhakti is, no one knows what bhakti is. Bhakti is love, but it's not like the love of this material world. The love of this material world is called kama. It's a little bit different than bhakti, and bhakti is the actual opposite. So let's define bhakti according to Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. I believe it's the 11th verse. Anyavilashita shunyam jnana karma anavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhakti rutamam. Some of you may know this verse, very famous verse. It's actually what we call the nutshell verse of the Nectar Devotion, or the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, bhakti, the quality of bhakti is anya vilashita shunyam. It is devoid of anavritam. Yeah, so it is devoid of anything, and he describes certain categories of everything else other than pleasing Krishna. He says, jnana karma anavritam. So what does this mean? Because last night we were talking about bhakti and how in the Krishna consciousness movement we have so much bhakti, hopefully. Because we may also have bhakti. You know what bhakti is, yeah. So, somebody means for things of this world. Like, give me this, give me that, like that. God becomes the big daddy. If people worship God as the Father, our Father who art in heaven, give us this day our daily bread. And so Prabhupada said that's like, God is like a baker. You know, baker? He's opened a bakery, he's giving bread. A roti, give us this day our daily roti. So instead we got a roti machine, so. But God is so kind, you know, a whole machine that can do 1,000 rotis an hour. It's because you prayed to him. So anyway, so generally in this world, we approach God for bhakti mukti siddhi kam. That's Lord Chaitanya's statement. Bhakti means, you know, we want things in this world. More bread, more rotis. As we mentioned last night, that this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, divine demoniac nature, so much wealth do I have today, so much more do I get tomorrow. He is my enemy, I've conquered him, etc. So bhakti is a big thing in this world, and generally people go to religious bhakti. And Krishna, in fact, understands this. He says, Chaturvidha bhajanti mam. 4 types of people come to me, and one of them is bhakti kam. isn't it? People looking for wealth, people who are inquisitive, people who are looking for knowledge, of people who are in distress. So anyway, so bhakti, generally that's constitutes most religion in the world. It's bhakti. And you find this, even in different religions, there's something, I'm not going to criticize any religion. It's called the prosperity gospel. And I've heard that word before, prosperity gospel. It's not in Indian religion. It's generally it's referred to in the Western religions. That, God will give you everything if you worship Him, you'll become prosperous. And you see the main preachers, they come on the stage and they're preaching how, they worship God. Now they have a big private jet or several private jets. I was just looking at one article in the newspaper. Actually, it was about no newspaper. We don't read newspapers. We can go on the internet. So anyway, who's read a newspaper? I don't even know what it is anymore. So on the internet, I was reading about how different religious leaders have these big private jets. Each one is costing, $3, $4, $5 million. Pretty cool. I was thinking I should become a big religious leader. I'm in the wrong religion, My mother was right. So anyway, so it's called prosperity gospel, and the way it's portrayed is like you have these really famous preachers, and this is not a branch of Hinduism usually, because you have the famous preachers get up on the stage and they have their beautiful wife next to them. Must be beautiful. And their attractive dog is next to them too. And we were on a morning walk today and telling people how beautiful their dogs were. And they became favorable to Krishna consciousness because Prabhupada said if you love someone's dog, they'll love you. So anyway, so we were, it's just like they present like perfect a model. I'm sure some of you have seen this sometimes. Perfect model of like demigods, basically. Like Indra, and Varuna, all the demigods like that. And you think, bhakti, wow. Praise the Lord. So Chant Hare Krishna. Krishna is the husband of the goddess of fortune. Wow. Sometimes I tell people, this is interesting. I tell people when they get married, sometimes they perform marriages. Actually, traditionally, it's not auspicious to have the sannyasi marriages, but anyway, so sometimes we're there blessing marriages. And we tell people, you want the secret of financial success in your marriage? They said, yeah. I said, here's the secret. Don't argue with each other. Because Prabhupada said that. Prabhupada said if the husband and wife don't argue, then the goddess of fortune is there. So that's an impossible request. Isn't it? I just like, so that's why everyone has to work a job. The wife has to work a job because they have to argue with each other. Otherwise, they can just sit back and chant Hare Krishna. So people are very interested in this world. And of course, the more you have, the more you want. Avritam Gyana Maintain Gyana Nichavayana Kama Rupena Kontiya Tushparena Lenacha. That's what the Bhagavad Gita describes. It's like throwing petrol into a fire. It just makes the fire flame more. So anyway, so it attracts a lot of people. A lot of people become attracted to that. So that's bhakti. And another thing is mukti. A smaller amount of people are attracted to mukti. Mukti means like liberation. That's because they're frustrated. Like we have this whole Purushartha thing in the Vedic literatures. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, right? Everybody knows about this? The four stages, the four considerations of human beings. Dharma, someone's religious, then Artha, money, then Kama, and joy. And then when you get frustrated, moksha. Or when you get old like me, it's moksha, Yeah, the mature world is really miserable. Probably was right all these years. Finally, I'm realizing it. after 55 years in the Hare Krishna movement. So anyways, but when you're young, you think no. Just like the illusion in the Mahabharata is the Hani Hani Bhukti Need Gachanti Yamalayam, that we see everybody else dying and we think it won't happen. Just like when I was young, I hardly knew anybody who died. You know, because everyone's young, you know, so it's a dead person, never heard of that. It's like Buddha, you know, Buddha never saw a dead person. I never saw a dead person, dead body. So when you get older, every week it's, oh, this person's friend died, this godbrother died. Uh-oh, it's real. You know, never, like when you're Ananta's age, it's not, oh, he always speaks like that. We always hear this. You know, this is our philosophy, but he doesn't really strike him that it's real. Because he thinks I have my whole life to live, you know, enjoyment. One day I'll be married and have a big family and a big house, right? You know what you want? No. So anyway, so I bless you to have it. So anyway, he doesn't want that blessing. So anyway, there's moksha. Moksha means we're frustrated. You get me out of this material world. So there's bhukti, and then there's another thing. There's a smaller amount of people. They want something called siddhi. Siddhi means powers. Like you see these yogis, they perform different austerities, and they get these powers. I was always wondering, how is it they get powers through austerities? And then I started studying something in science. I began to understand, not how to do it, but I understood that Krishna is operating this material world like a simulation, a computer simulation. And they've learned to hack the simulation. You understand the analogy that I performed? Like if you have a video game, one of the characters actually understands. If you ever watched that movie, The Matrix, you understand what I'm talking about. They understand how to hack. So that's a yogi. He's siddhi. Siddhi means powers. And some yogis, they can make themselves fly in the air. Lagima siddhi. Prapti siddhi. They can reach out and make a withdrawal from the bank without taking it from their account, you know. Imagine if you could reach out to the bank, you know, like Wells Fargo or something. Oh, look what I got. Yogis can do that, or they make themselves a mahima, very big, very heavy, lagima, very light, prapti, ishita. You know, they can do all sorts of amazing things that violate what we consider to be the laws of physics, isn't it? The yogis can do this thing called non-locality, which the scientists are just talking about in terms of quantum mechanics. It's interesting, you know, everybody's heard of quantum mechanics, you know, non-locality, anyway, I'm not gonna explain that. Because before, this morning I got too much into science and I bewildered everybody. So, you could just study quantum mechanics and you'll understand what non-locality is. So anyway, the yogis, you can take a bath in one river and get up in another river. Pretty amazing, isn't it? That's pretty amazing. So this is very attractive. Just like people nowadays, of course, they don't know about yoga powers so much, but they try to obtain it or are envious or think of people with the yoga powers because the people here nowadays, they talk about superheroes. You heard of superheroes? People with different powers. Like I had one of my disciples really into superheroes. And he has a bead bag with a Spider-Man on it. It was really, you know, because that's like yogic powers, you know. Can you imagine that? A Hare Krishna bead bag, Hare Krishna, what's on your bead bag, Spider-Man? So it's actually quite interesting how people want these powers, right? They want different powers like that. So, bhukti, mukti, siddhi, and these are all kams, or lust, desire. What differentiates that from bhakti is that it's also about me. It's not about someone else. It's about, doing something for myself or my extended self. We have this concept of self. It's not just me, but it's everything connected with this body, family or whatever, or even nation or race or whatever. It's just like our extended self. Just like people have this thing called xenophobia. I don't even know what that is. That means when they're trying to keep foreigners out of the United States. Build a wall, build a wall, build a wall. But Prabhupada said, and Krishna says that everyone is Krishna's parts and parcels. There's no question that someone is American, someone is Indian, someone is Russian, they're all part of the same family, isn't it? Yastu sarvani bhutani atman evanu pashyati. Sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatona bhigushati. That's from this Upanishad. It says, one who is Krishna conscious sees everyone connected with Krishna, and he doesn't think anyone's an outsider, or no one's actually particularly an insider. Everybody's just brothers and sisters, So this is the right consciousness. So, bhakti means, going back to the original verse, Anyavi lashta shunyam jnana karma navritam. It means to be free. Shunya. Shunya means zero, or nothing, or shunya, less than zero. Void, basically. Void. Sometimes, in Sanskrit it means zero too, So in this particular context, it means void of any personal desire for this, for things of this world, for liberation, or powers, or prestige, or anything like that. Just wanting, the final portion of the verse, Gyanakarma Navritam, Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktirutamam. Just wanting to do what Krishna wants to please him, and to do it in a wonderful devotional mood. So that's the difference between also bhakti and ritualism. Because bhakti means not only to do what you're supposed to do, but to do it to please the object of the person you're trying to please, who is obviously Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So that bhakti shakti cannot be obtained by some mental adjustment. If you just think in your mind, okay, I should just want to please Krishna, I should just want to please Krishna. It doesn't work. As much as I'd like it to work, it doesn't work like that. Because that's just jnana. And there's something else called vigyan. Vigyan means to realize something. Like I can tell you, the example Prabhupada gives, is you can tell someone sugar is sweet, sugar is sweet, sugar, and they've never tasted sugar. It doesn't mean anything. But as soon as you taste sugar, you know what sweetness is. That's a vigyan, that's a material example of vigyan. So it's the same thing with that love, that pure love. And that pure love is the only thing that satisfies you, as the Bhagavatam states. Savaipum sampara dharma yadrupa sajay haitakiya pratyata yatma suprasidati. That's the only thing that satisfies the Atma. Because that's really why we're unhappy. Because our loving propensity is being frustrated. We're trying to repose it in matter. Or in our dog or something like that. Using that example because I was interacting with dogs this morning. But it's a great way to preach to people. You just tell people, that is a pretty dog you have. And they say, where's your temple? We had one person like that this morning. When do you have any services? Where's your temple? Okay. Try it. Like Prabhupada said, you please the dog, you please the person. So, but we're reposing our love. But actually, we're reposing our love in the dog. We're reposing our love in what the dog does for us. It's a little bit different. Like I oftentimes give the example, you know, the dog, you like the dog because it has nice fur, right? You pet the dog, and it barks at all your enemies. And so, let's say if we were to turn the dog into a Hare Krishna brahmachari, then we shave off its hair. Then you go, ooh. It's not so attractive anyway. You don't want to pet it like that, or if it had sores on its body, right? You know, what happened to you, doggy? So really that sort of reposing the love in the world is actually still based on me, you know. What do I get from that relationship? You know, oh, what a pretty dog, because the pretty dog satisfies my senses. Of course, last night we talked about you can't judge whether a dog is pretty or ugly. Well, you know, that's just my judgment. It's relative, not absolute. The absolute beauty of the dog. So, but actually, it is all relative in this world, because you see in certain cultures, beauty is said there's difference. Like there's one culture in Africa called the Ubangi culture, where a lady has to have real big lips that go out to here to be considered beautiful. What they do is the little girls, they put plates in there so the lips go out further and further. So it's actually relative. The beauty is relative in this world. So, you know, what I consider beautiful, you may consider ugly. And it's just so I get pleased by it. You know, why do I like a beautiful sunset? Because it pleases me. You know, and in the beginning, why do I like Krishna? Because he pleases me. But after a while, it's I want to please Krishna. And you have to, ultimately it comes to the point of like the gopis, like the last verse in the Shikshashtika. What is that? Krishna, you may crush me by your embrace. Krishna, you may leave me broken-hearted by not being present. You're completely free to do anything and everything, and you always remain my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Wow. So getting back to the point, you can't really achieve that state by yourself. And it's not given. That state of consciousness, that state of bhakti, is not given by Krishna. Even Krishna won't give it to you. Because it is, as explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which I mentioned at the beginning of the Madhurya Kadambini, he says bhakti is independent. Now, of course, Krishna is the supreme controller, I understand that. But he gives bhakti that independence, and he gives bhakti to the pure devotees, and the pure devotees have bhakti in their hearts, and they have the ability to give it to others. Krishna say, Tamar Krishna Dite Par. You know, like the song goes, that Krishna is yours, you have the power to give them to me. I'm simply running behind you shouting, Krishna, Krishna, isn't it? So the methodology to get that bhakti is to please Krishna's devotee, to connect with Krishna's devotee. And now, of course, the initial contact with bhakti is through the Bhakti Lata Beach, which one gets when one hears the holy name or spiritual sound vibration come from the lips of the pure devotee, which I was fortunate to hear from Prabhupada directly on the radio the first time. So that means that any of you can hear from Prabhupada. If I heard or got the Bhakti Lata Beach, the seat of the creeper of devotion on the radio, that means you can just like pick up your mobile phones and play a recording of Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada wasn't physically present in my room when I was listening to the holy name. That's interesting, isn't it? Because some of you think, oh, Prabhupada's not here. That's wrong, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Reason Sill says that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still and sound. So that's it. So, in other words, my initial contact with Prabhupada was long distance in a recording. So it really didn't matter whether Prabhupada was still on the planet or not on the planet. At that, of course, Prabhupada was on the planet. So then there's the initial contact. You get the seed of the creeper of devotion, and then what do? You have to water a seed to have it fructify, And ultimately, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes, to pierce through the covering of the material world, the material universe, and offer flowers at Krishna's lotus feet. And so that process of cultivation, of course, that's called sadhana bhakti, and raganuga bhakti is part of the sadhana bhakti, but it is accomplished by pleasing Krishna's devotee or devotees, by serving. And of course, everybody knows the last verse of the Guru Vashika that we chant every morning is Yasha Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasha Prasada Na Gati Gatopi. So basically, it means thinking and guiding one's life to please Krishna's great devotee. And for those of us in the Krishna conscious movement, regardless who we're initiated by, that's His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, and our Guru who's representing Prabhupada, obviously. We're not minimizing other Vaishnavas. But just thinking, guiding one's life like that. One may not be expert in quoting so many verses, one may not be expert in playing the pradanga, or he's pretty good. One may not, have so many skills. Just like that story with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came across this illiterate Brahmin who was crying. And he said to the illiterate Brahmin, why are you crying? He said, it was explained, people were laughing at him too, that I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita. My spiritual master ordered me to read the Bhagavad Gita every day, but I'm illiterate. So I'm simply looking at the pages, I guess, or something like that. They didn't have pictures in the Bhagavad Gita in those days. Those are the old days, it was just like written by hand. So obviously there weren't colored pictures like we have now, you can look at the pictures. But he was picturing in his mind's eye how wonderful it is, or was, that Krishna became the chariot driver for his devotee Arjuna. And he was crying, just like, because understanding the ras means the taste, and the rati, the relationship, and the bhava, three different things. Very important. Rati, rasa, bhava. That's advanced. Of course, in the beginning there's Siddhanta, but he was understanding the taste of the relationship, the type of relationship between Krishna and Arjuna, that's Rati, the love, like that, and the emotions that Krishna and Arjuna were feeling for each other. And so he was basically immersed like that, and Lord Chaitanya said, you're the real knower of the Bhagavad Gita, because you're satisfying your spiritual master. You follow his order. And Prabhupada said the order of the spiritual master has within it the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a famous quote by Prabhupada. So that's really the secret to getting bhakti and then becoming free of any other desire, rather than artificially trying to do it in your mind. Oftentimes devotees try to do it, especially young brahmacharis. They just try to talk each other out of their desires. They happen to look at a lady, she's Maya, that's Maya, you're Maya, you're in Maya. Isn't it? It's like a negative approach to renunciation. That's not Lord Chaitanya's process. Lord Chaitanya's process is Yukta Vairagya, in which we see everything connected to Krishna. Yomams Pashati Sarvatra Sarvam Shamayu Pashati Tashaham Na Pranashami Sachame Na Pranashati. That's 6:30 from the Bhagavad Gita. So when you see everything connected to Krishna, then you want to use everything for Krishna because it belongs to Krishna. We also Yishavasham Idam Saram Yat Kincha Jikachal Chikat Tena Jiktena Bunjira Magratha Kashas Vietnam. Everything is owned and controlled by the Supreme Lord. So anyway, so this is Krishna consciousness, and it's very easy. That renunciation comes. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadhaitikam. Not only renunciation, but bhakti and jnana, knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's all by serving the great devotees. Beginning with Srila Prabhupada, and So the question is, how do you serve Prabhupada? Oh, there's another question. By serving the other Vaishnavas, Tadati Prati Granati Guyanga Akyuti Prachati Bhukte Bhokshite Chaiva. You know, serving and having loving exchange with the Vaishnavas and spreading Krishna consciousness. Like a devotee one time asked Prabhupada, I want the dust from your lotus feet. And Prabhupada said, you'll have to move to get it. In other words, you'll have to spread Krishna consciousness to get it. You know, not move. You know, you have to spread Krishna consciousness. So I tried through the other means with Prabhupada when I was a young brahmachari. I used to walk behind Prabhupada on the beach and eat the sand in his footprints. I was moving and I was eating the sand too. But I got mercy too. That's also a way, you know, the foot dust, the first bathing water, prasadam remnants. I got all those things from Prabhupada. I was very greedy. But the real method of getting the foot dust with a pure devotee, isn't it? What is that verse? Oh yeah. Ruganai tat tapasananyati tachejya nirvat kanad grahadva the chandasanai vajilagni suryar vana mahapada rajobhishekam that you're not going to become Krishna conscious by executing austerity. This is a verse spoken by Jatavarta Maharaj Rahugana. He says, my dear Maharaj Rahugana, Jatavarta was the third incarnation of Bharta Maharaj. Okay. Whoops, they're going to make an offering or something?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like they're pulling the microphone away from me now. So anyway, he said, Ruganai Tatapasanai, you're not going to become renounced Krishna conscious by executing austerity. You know, even now it's Purushottam, but that's not going to make you Krishna conscious just by doing some special austerities, unless you please Krishna's devotee. Because one has to, if one's austerities don't please Krishna's devotee, like if you went to Prabhupada, for example, and said, Prabhupada, I've been very austere, I've been fasting for 2 months. Prabhupada would say, you rascal, just eat something, go out in Sankirtan, you know? Because you're just sitting there staring at your navel for 2 months because you have no strength. You know, you're not going to be in Krishna. Tapasa nayanti, nor by taking sannyas. Nachanda sanai vajilagni suryar, nor by putting yourself in fire in the middle of the summer in Sacramento, or by putting yourself in ice cubes in the middle of the winter. He says, only by taking the dust to the feet of the pure devotee. Pada Mahapada, Rajobi Shekam. Mahapada, Rajobi Shekam. So, anyway, so this is how you get bhakti, this is how you become happy. So, you have any questions? I think time's running out. Questions? No?
Ashish should ask because he's been asking too many questions.
No, he gets the first
Yeah, he is the first guy.
first choice. Yeah, you can ask.
Oh,
Thank you, Prabhu. Maharaj, just one thing, when you started in the beginning, one point which struck me is that you said,
Do you have another mic for him?
Yeah, we have 2 mics. Can everybody see the other mic?
Okay.
Oh,
Well, my mic's gone now.
oh, you're from yeah.
that is gone.
You eliminated my mic.
Oh, battery.
No, he must have eliminated it. It's there. It's still working, but you turn the volume down or it's something like that. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. No, I got it. Can't talk like that. Hare Krishna. Somehow when they put the other one in, it reduced this one. No, that's working. It's just a question when you put the other plug in, you switch plugs or something. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Battery mic है वो
Hare.
We can change it.
Okay. Here. Hare Krishna. Hey, that's better.
Yeah, it is.
Hare
we can
Krishna.
speak it like this, yeah.
Okay. Let's try our best.
So the question, Maharaj, is that
Now it mic works. It didn't like me.
in the beginning when you said that how do you identify a Vaishnava, that
A pure Vaishnava, yeah.
pure Vaishnava, that you think or you start chanting.
When you see them.
So if you see someone and if you don't start chanting, then the fault is in you or this person is not.
Well, that may be your misfortune, because it's described that one doesn't feel joyful upon seeing any Vaishnava, then Yamaraj is basically taking care of you in one way. No, actually it's an offense. Actually, if you look at a devotee, let's say a devotee comes, or even a non-devotee comes to your house and they ask for some prasadam, what do they want to come and eat for? Then that's an offense. So you gotta be really careful. I know sometimes I go somewhere, and as soon as I arrive by plane, it says, "When are you leaving, Maharaj? I'll take you to the airport." I say, "You're jumping the gun. I just came, haven't come." So one should be joyful to see any Vaishnava, but someone like Prabhupada, like the Uttama Adhikari, is very special. So if you don't feel that upon seeing Prabhupada, because even non-devotees felt like that when they saw Prabhupada, then your heart is just like steel-framed or problematic like that. So yes, Prabhupada, with someone like Prabhupada, he's not an ordinary, not even an ordinary pure devotee. Saktavesh avatar, so people would see him. I mean, you see the people in the beginning of the movement, you'd see some of these videos of Prabhupada, and people just fainting around Prabhupada. And of course, that shouldn't be the end of it. You have to make a connection on a higher spiritual plane, too, because many of the devotees who had that ecstasy when they saw Prabhupada didn't remain in the movement when Prabhupada left the planet. You find that a lot of devotees. They were dependent upon what they call the Vapu, the pure devotee, Vani and Vapu, you all heard that term. Vani means instructions. So, somehow or other, Krishna gave me the intelligence to depend on Prabhupada's Vani. And also I was inspired by the 4th canto of Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada says when the spiritual master leaves the planet, one should be ready to leave with the spiritual master unless he's ready to carry out the mission of the spiritual master. It's a heavy statement in the 4th canto. Some of you read this statement? 4th canto, the story of Paranjana. So and Prabhupada gives the example of the chaste wife and the sati. Of course, that's illegal now. Nowadays, the wives just throw their husbands in the fire. It's Kali Yuga, what can you do? And then they collect the inheritance afterwards. So, but that's a joke. Anyway, there are some good wives around.
The husband also thinks that way, right?
Yeah. Husband also may think like that. But traditional, like if you have really tight relations, like the Pandavas or something like that, or like a Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, even though they weren't pure devotees, still they had that relationship. That's culture. So Prabhupada said that's the relationship of the disciple with the guru. So when the guru leaves the planet, the Vapu leaves the planet, then the disciple should dedicate himself or herself to the mission of the spiritual master. Otherwise, they should we don't want people committing suicide, for sure. But that should be the consciousness that my life doesn't have value now that my guru has left the planet. And I know some of you, your spiritual masters, may have left the planet. And so what is the value of my life? Because the only way you can connect with your guru now is through seva. Previously, if he came, you could you could drive to wherever he was and see him, or he would come to a particular place. But that's the only way you can connect to him now, is through hearing. Seva begins with hearing, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. So, but still, that's the connection. It's not a sentimental thing. He's my guru, but how is he your guru? Is the question. Not only at the official ceremony of initiation, I am so-and-so's disciple, but disciple means discipline. Discipline means dedication, means, like Prabhupada said that Shishya comes from the root shash dhatu, that means root, and which means discipline. And then Prabhupada talked about Shastra and Shastra. You know those two terms? Shastra means the book, Shastra means the stick. So,
Yeah, but I think if I'm not following the guru, and even guru is there or guru is not there, it is suicide, basically.
yeah, it is still, you're disconnected. You know, like even if you're in the same physical location as the guru or anyone, if you're not connecting with them through service, then you're not really connecting with them. You're connecting with your own desires. Like Prabhupada said, sometimes people want a pet guru. You know, they keep their guru. Prabhupada says, Prabhupada's expression, they keep their guru as a pet. You know, I was initiated by this person and that person.
A lot of people in Hindi in India, I come from North India, they say, "Maine guru kar liya." It's like I have
a guru.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. But guru, to have a guru, it's, you know, it's a relationship of bhakti. Like trying to please you see the guru not independent from Krishna. I mean, you have to actually, otherwise that's like demigod worship. You see the guru as in his connection or his position or relationship with Krishna. Good question. So, any other questions?
It's more of a feeling or a thought, if I can share.
Okay.
So when we talk about serving Vaishnavas, serving the devotees of the Lord Krishna,
Right.
so Prabhu Nityananda went to spread the word, and he was thrown objects at him.
Right.
He came back, he went again objects were thrown at him, and he started bleeding. When that word reached Lord Chaitanya, Sudarshan Chakra came out.
Yes.
And Prabhu Nityananda calmed him down and said, no, that's not what we want to do.
That's right.
So my point is, the person who did that, he turned into a devotee. He wasn't Vaishnava.
No, it wasn't rational.
He wasn't Vaishnava. So
That's right.
my thought process is, if we embody what we read, because to your point, you know, if not the sound energy, what I read is also an energy that
Right,
gives me
right, that's true.
that I should serve everybody because Lord Krishna is in everybody.
Yes.
I may or may not succeed, but that's not something in my hand anyway. So if my principle is karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu
Yeah.
kadachana, then why would I want to expect that only if I find Vaishnavas and devotees I'll serve?
Mm.
I may not be fortunate enough to find enough Vaishnavas to
Uh-huh.
serve, in statistically speaking, whatever life I have left from where I am today. So serve everybody you can with all pure devotion, and
Yes.
keep learning from those mistakes that I make, that I didn't serve them as I should. Have the reflection, go back and do it again, because I know that I'm gonna make mistakes every day.
Yes. Yes, obviously, we serve everyone, but there's a difference between our methodology of serving Vaishnavas and serving others. Like, to serve Vaishnavas, we do what they say. But to serve those who are not Vaishnavas, we do what they need. Do you understand the difference?
Yes.
Just like if you have a little child, and I think we used this example the other day, that if your child, he says certain things, you don't do everything he says. Like you say, Daddy, you're supposed to serve me. I want chocolate for dinner tonight. Only chocolate. Chocolate ice cream. Right? You don't like that. I do. So, I want, you know, if you say, if the child becomes like the patron in the restaurant, like, you know, you ladies can relate to this, like if you give your children a menu before dinner, you can pick something from column A, something from column B tonight, and you can eat as much as you want anytime, or you don't have to go to school. So to serve people who are not Vaishnavas, it entails knowing how to serve them in the way that's best for them,
Yes.
which they do not know.
Yes.
That's the point. Like a child, you know, they're innocent. You know, we have nothing against the children, but we want to serve the children. When I see a child I want to serve a child, but I don't ask them, basically, what would you like me to do? Right? So there is service. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a very good point. But the mode or the methodology of service is different regarding who. Like Lord Nityananda served Jagai and Madai by forgiving them, but also they had to get instructions from Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, don't sin again. And you know, in the Christianity, you have Jesus Christ serving this prostitute, and who was going to get stoned and killed. And he said, don't sin again. So there's instruction, and there's a methodology of service. Whereas if I'm dealing with a more advanced Vaishnava, I won't say to Prabhupada, I know what you want. He'll say, you rascal. You know, I'll tell you what I want. Like there's that whole story with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, where, I mean, basically he got chastised, gets a loving relationship. Like what he was doing was, anyway, little ISKCON history. He had this Radha Damodar party, which is a bus party that were traveling around the United States distributing Prabhupada's books. And the way they populated the party with devotees was to actually steal many of the brahmacharis from the temples. You know, so the temple president would wake up one morning and find all the brahmacharis gone. Can you imagine that? You know, time for Mangalarti. Oh, where's all the brahmacharis? They left on the bus, you know, because they would preach to people that your real business is to be with sannyasis, not householders who are in charge of the temple. So that, to make the long story short, the temple presidents went to Prabhupada and complained. And they complained to Prabhupada, and they said, this is happening, and we're losing all of our brahmacharis. And Prabhupada called for Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Some of you may know the story. And he said, what do you have to say about it? He said, what do they want me to do? Go to China? And then he left the room. And Prabhupada, when he was in the temple room, Prabhupada called him back. He refused to come back first because he said, I know what he's going to ask me to do. So he comes back, and Prabhupada said, Krishna spoke through your mouth. You should go to China. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, I'm not going. And Prabhupada said, then I'm taking all your service away from you. You know, this is the dealings. Taking all your service away from you, and you just sit here in Mayapur and chant, don't do anything else. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj surrendered. He says, all right, I'm going to China. And because of that destruction by Prabhupada, we have literally probably tens of thousands of Chinese devotees nowadays. Yeah, many of you have been to Mayapur recently. During the Gaur Purnima festival, you see all these tens of thousands of Chinese devotees. And they actually still eat with their chopsticks. They eat prasad with their chopsticks. You know, their culture is still there, and they play instrument, you know, their instruments are Chinese instruments, but they dance and chant. They're chanting Hare Krishna. Like that. So that's a different relationship. Yes, we serve everybody, but specifically as far as following instructions of everybody, that's not really what we do.
I totally agree, and that's why they say when the saints and the God don't do what they do,
Yeah.
do what they say.
Yeah.
So that I totally agree. I was more making a point that serving everybody,
Yes.
because you're getting instructions when you're serving the Vaishnavas, how to serve the Vaishnavas.
Yes.
But then serve everybody else too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. And that, you know, that's like when I'm, you know, even when I go out for a walk, I think that I'm serving the people I'm talking to, just like that's why I like their dog. Because they would become favorable to Krishna consciousness. Not that I wanted them to like me. I thought because I'm dressed as a devotee, they'll think, oh, those Hare Krishnas are really nice people. They love my dog. So,
Thank you.
thank you. That was good. Good. Nice questions. Okay, one more question. It's getting late because we.
One big question comes.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, if I hear correctly, you mentioned that you met Prabhupada, right?
Yes, many times.
Okay. So, how do you find out that he is your spiritual guru and how you were attracted?
Well, the first time I was attracted when I heard him on the radio, but I didn't realize he was my guru at that time. My whole life changed. I was just trying to listen to some no ordinary music, Bollywood music or something. Not Bollywood, we didn't have it that time.
Hollywood, right?
Not Hollywood. It was, some folk music. I was into folk music because that was the time in America where there was the Vietnam War going on, and there was a lot of anti-war songs and everything like about peace and love and all that other stuff. So all of a sudden, listening to the radio, Prabhupada came on, and I became so astounded just by hearing. I didn't know what it was. It's Prabhupada chanting that I left the radio on and turned on my tape recorder. You may not know what a tape recorder is. It's old technology. Before they had cassettes, before they had MP3s or digital stuff. So anyway, I turned on the tape recorder, and finally they played it again, and I turned it on, and I kept playing it. Once I recorded, played it over and over again. And I didn't know what it was. It was just something that really changed my life. And that was the first time I came in contact with Prabhupada, because I didn't recognize him as my guru. But I recognized him the first time I met him physically in 1971. As soon as he walked in, there was an immediate recognition from the past, past life, or whatever you may call it, and realization. And so then I actually asked Prabhupada for initiation like 1 week after I met him. And the temple president almost killed me for going over his head. The people have this hierarchy, they want to control everything. So if someone is the president, I'm not criticizing any presidents here, but so it's just like, no one comes to the Father but through me. And that day, it was like, oh my God. And so literally the temple president, I'll tell you how he almost killed me, which is interesting. And every morning in the temple, we would clean the temple. And I would sweep and he would mop behind me. So I'd be sweeping the floor and he kept running at me, swinging the mop, because he was so angry at me. We were young people, 21, what can you do? Youth is wasted on the young people. So anyway, so I asked Prabhupada, but then I was initiated like 4 or 5 months after that by Srila Prabhupada. And and there was immediate recognition. I mean, Prabhupada's Prabhupada. It didn't take long to figure that out. What can I say? And then, other times I associated with Prabhupada, but that was all after initiation. In New Vrindavan, I got a chance to cook for Prabhupada, which was nice. And India and certain places. Many different little stories, little big, we call vignettes stories, when I was with Prabhupada. But, it was a unique experience. I've never met anyone. I mean, the experience I had the first time I met him was hearing someone who had causeless love for everybody. You talk about love, service to everybody. He didn't discriminate, insofar as who to love, who not to love, who was ugly or who was good looking. It was just like, I mean, Prabhupada even loved, the one time his servant tells a story of how there was a little bug on his flower garland. Prabhupada said to his servant, put him outside, he's hungry. Most of us, we see a bug, we go, isn't it? It's like last night I had flies in my room. And I just think, I can't sleep with these flies. I didn't think of saving them or anything like that, or chanting to them. So I called my faithful servant. I said, you got to get rid of the flies. And he says, I'm expert. I spent years training how to get rid of flies. And he got rid of it. He knew how to, the flies didn't move. He was like a fly whisperer or something. He just said, jump in this bottle. Somehow or other, he got rid of the flies in the room. And But Prabhupada was someone who would always think compassionately about the flies. Of course, Prabhupada didn't, I mean, not that he liked having flies in his, or anything like that, but he thought compassionately about all living entities. That's a pure devotee. That's what impressed me about Prabhupada. So I think we should end. It's time for everyone's prasadam now. So thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please join me in thanking Bir Krishna Maharaj for visiting us here and request him to come here more often, especially when we have the new temple. Hare Bol.
Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, we go now? Oh, thank you very much. So, we're gonna go because I don't want to take rest real late. We're gonna leave right now. Okay. Because if I take rest too late, it really hurts my health. Sure.
Thank you, Maharaj, for visiting.
Thank you. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow at the temple, because we're doing the midday program.
Okay, sure. Can I take this?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Good questions.